later and they've created a job, not a business. They're working 60 or more hours a week. They can't take a vacation. They don't get to be with their kids. They're home so rarely that their spouse threatens divorce. They're buried by the business they created. And another person opens the same type of business in the same location, and in the same time period they've grown to 40 locations. Things are in control, they've got a life, and they cash out as a multimillionaire. The difference between these two is not in the product or service. It's not in the location. It's in the entrepreneur's ability to replicate and delegate what they do consistently and reliably through others. Today's presentation is about how to create a business that can give you everything you dreamed it could ever give you. Think back to when you first started your business, and remember the passion and the excitement and the energy that you felt when you were first getting started. While many of you may have felt some trepidation, you probably felt like you were going to bust things open, that nothing could prevent you from winning. Now, 7 or maybe 10 years later, things probably look a little different. Very few businesses actually achieve the goals that the owner had for them when they first got started. And if you're just getting started, pay attention to this. Although you may not believe it, it will come to pass. 96% of all startups for decades and decades do not reach the goals and dreams that their owners started with. Why is that? I believe it's due to a lack of business processes. The business is dependent upon the owner and a few key people instead of having documented operating procedures that can be used to train and replicate what the owner and his key people do. The business is dependent on key individuals when it needs to be dependent upon the processes the people follow. What do business owners want? They want a business that's consistent, one that runs smoothly, continues to grow, and can generate consistent and predictable results. They want to be able to easily find and keep top-grade employees who do what they're asked and more. They want to be profitable. They want freedom to be able to do what they want to do when they want to do it. And eventually, they want to exit their business and live comfortably, which means they want to be able to maximize its value and sell it, or they want their kids or employees to take it over and pay them enough to live the life they feel they deserve. And lastly, maybe not everyone, but I think most want to achieve a purpose, make a difference in the world, leave their signature behind them, a legacy. What do most business owners get? They get inconsistency, feast and famine. They get a business that runs unpredictably at best. They're reacting to situations, always feeling like they're behind the curve, putting out fires. They make compromises when they're hiring, and they settle for average and often subpar employees who don't really perform to the owner's expectations. They make enough money to break even, but not enough money to relieve the stress. And because of the stress, they get consumed. They're not able to do what they want when they want to do it. And eventually they retire. They might sell their business, but many times it closes or goes out of business, or they keep working because they have to, not because they want to. Executives say their managers spend, on average, 7 or more hours a week sorting out personality conflicts among staff members. 46% of new hires leave their jobs within the first year. 63% of those who don't feel treated with respect intend to leave within 2 years. If you're a small company, chances are these numbers may sound a little high. But see these as percentages, and remember that we're talking about creating a business that runs smoothly, profitably, and consistently. As an example, in an efficient business, there would be no hesitancy to let someone go who was not a top-grade producer. Imagine if you were to let go all of those employees in your company that were not top-grade producers. What would your turnover rate be then? Additionally, in smaller companies, employees tend to get more personal communication and interaction. Imagine your business tripling in size and ask yourself if you'd still be able to give this same level of personal communication. Many more conflicts will arise. One of the differences between a big business and a small business is that the big business thought like a big business when they were a small business. In other words, the small business was considering and implementing concepts such as these before they were a big business, and as a result, they were able to create an infrastructure in which they could successfully grow. 85% of employee morale sharply decreases after the first 6 months on the job. 87% of employees say that working with a low performer has made them want to change jobs. 93% of employees say that working with a low performer has decreased their productivity. A huge mistake business owners make is not holding their employees accountable to expectations, often because they don't even know what those expectations are. But if you keep a low-grade producing employee, and most do because they can't face dealing with letting someone go and then having to rehire another, chances are their attitude will infect the rest of the troops. How they are is going viral throughout your company. The top 100 companies in North America spent $60 billion in training in 1 year. The national average employee turnover rate was almost 25%. That means $15 billion was wasted, went right down the drain. What's wrong with this picture? How could that possibly happen? In most cases, it's the result of missing systems or the inadequate implementation of existing operating procedures, poorly implemented recruiting and hiring systems, few, if any, management systems that are effective, outdated job descriptions and operating manuals. Just these 4 systems would minimize, if not eliminate, the alarming statistics identified on the previous pages. A recruiting and hiring system to make it easy to get good candidates. The worst time to hire someone is when you need someone. The very worst time to hire someone is when you need them. Can you see why this is true? It's because when you need someone, you are almost always at extended capacity. You've either grown quickly, or someone's left and now you're stressed to find a replacement. And so what happens? You make a compromise. You hire someone who's not really qualified for the job and you believe that they'll grow into it. The result? They either quit, they get fired, or the worst situation is that you keep them on for months and months and months as a low-grade performer because you simply can't face going through the firing and rehiring process. An employee orientation system to make sure the employee gets the attention they need when they first start, and to be sure all of the necessary paperwork that the business needs is taken care of efficiently. A training system to communicate clear direction and establish clear expectations, and to ensure the employee ramps up to speed as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And management systems to be sure they understand what they're doing well and where they can improve. Creating and implementing just these 4 systems would have a profound effect on the efficiency and profitability of your company. Brad Smart, the author of Top Grading, is a consultant to some of the leading companies in the United States, including General Electric and Intel. One of the statistics that Brad has discovered is that most companies are less than 25% successful at hiring. This means that 75% of the time they're getting it wrong. They're hiring the wrong person. These statistics that I'm sharing today are not statistics that commonly show up on profit and loss statements and balance sheets. They're issues that are covert. They're off the radar screen. They're ignored or overlooked by most business owners. My goal is to shine a light on these business issues because they're rampant throughout small, mid-size, and even large businesses, and until you pay attention to them, understand them, and resolve them, you will never be able to achieve your business dreams. Brad Smart also reports that the cost of replacing an employee can be as much as 15 times their annual salary. Now, I don't like to shock people with extreme and sometimes unbelievable statistics, so I found another study that found, at a minimum, the cost of replacing an employee is 1.5 times their annual salary. So let it be somewhere between 1.5 times to 15 times their annual salary. This means that if you have an employee who's making $40,000, the cost to replace the employee is $60,000 at a minimum. That's a lot of money. Why is that? Why is it so expensive to replace an employee? It's not just the cost of recruiting and hiring, performing assessments, and the time and energy of training. Those are costs, but the biggest hit is the cost of lost opportunity. The average new associate is only 25% productive on their first month on the job. Production increases to 50% for the next 2 months, and it will often take 5 to 6 months for them to be 100% productive, if they get to that level at all. Let's say, for example, you have a salesperson who quits, a salesperson who's selling $25,000 a month. You're then lucky enough to get a new employee started 2 weeks later, and the salary you pay for this new salesperson is $40,000 annually, base plus commission. In the first month, according to the study, at 25% productivity, the new salesperson will achieve just over $6,000 in sales. You've just lost almost $20,000 in potential sales had they been at 100% productivity. In months 2 and 3, at 50% productivity, the new salesperson should hit just over $12,000 per month in sales. You just lost another $25,000. In a 6-month period, at 100% productivity, your previous salesman would have achieved $150,000 in sales. Your new salesperson, in a 6-month period, finally achieves 100% productivity. He'll generate $87,250 in sales. Your lost opportunity cost in this example is more than $62,000. Most business owners don't think of it this way, or worse still, don't even consider this, but the example illustrates the real cost of a mishire. It's somewhere between 1.5 and 15 times their annual salary. The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes is another good book. It's jam-packed with excellent sales processes. The author talks about the tribal method of training. Most managers and business owners train their employees by talking to them. This may have been something that worked in the past, such as when we were cavemen sitting around a fire and teaching our children how to hunt by telling them stories. But it simply doesn't work today. In our fast-moving, multimedia, ADHD culture, people simply don't pay attention. Studies show that employees retain less than 20% of what you tell them. Have you ever experienced this? You've told an employee what to do, and you come back a couple of months later and you see what they're doing, and you ask, who on earth told you how to do it that way? And their response is, you did. It happens all the time. You need to give them more than the auditory tribal experience. If you tell them how to do it, if you show them how to do it, and if you have documented instructions that you review step by step with them in such a way that they can ask questions about each step, and you create a situation where they can access the information when they need it, you should and can expect 100% retention. Here's the study that will noodle its way into your brain over the next couple of weeks. Studies show the average employee wastes 150 hours a year just looking for things, searching through old emails, searching for misfiled electronic spreadsheets or Word documents, looking for misfiled articles or forms. If you have employees who are working 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, 150 hours is the equivalent of 1 full month. That's 1 full month of 100% complete inefficiency. As an example, if your salary expenses total more than $400,000 annually, you're losing over $34,000 a year in inefficiencies. Now, I'm not saying that documented operating procedures will completely eliminate all of the inefficiency in your business. I am saying that documented operating procedures will increase your efficiency and therefore your bottom line. We've done studies with some of our clients, and the increased profitability generated as a result of the reduced hours of inefficiency in their first year of using the Touchstone application has covered the cost of their application for 22 years. It's proved to be a huge return on their investment. Most people use Microsoft Outlook as their email client, and they have Outlook set up just as it arrived on their desktop or laptop computer. In other words, every time an email arrives, a little balloon pops up in the bottom right-hand corner of their screen indicating that an email has arrived. Studies show that the average employee reacts to an incoming email within 6 seconds, and every time they're distracted by an email, it takes a full 60 seconds to get back to what they were doing. It's called recovery time. This doesn't include the time that's wasted by the loss of focus from stopping what they were doing, switching gears, and responding to the email. The time cost and impact because of interruptions will be illustrated in my next slide. But in this example, we're simply talking about the distraction of that email notification. If you get 60 emails a day, you'll be losing at least an hour a day to interruption recovery time. 1 hour a day equates to 5 hours a week, which equates to 21 hours a month or more than 250 hours a year. Additionally, the average employee spends 800 hours a year just reading and reacting to email, not including recovery time. In the Touchstone application, there's an excellent system for email and voicemail handling that will have a huge impact on the efficiency and focus of your day. At a minimum, it can give you more than 20 hours of time back per month, 20 hours every month. At the end of today's presentation, you'll get an opportunity to register for a Touchstone account and play with it for a month. Many of the systems I'm discussing today, including this one, are systems that are already documented in the General Systems Library of the Touchstone application. You can download these systems into your own Touchstone account. You can save them to your personal computer and edit them and keep them just for viewing this presentation. Here's the statistic I mentioned in the previous slide about interruptions. On average, we experience an interruption every 8 minutes. This equates to 50 to 60 interruptions every day. The average interruption takes approximately 5 minutes. If the average employee receives 50 interruptions a day, and each interruption takes 5 minutes, that equates to 250 minutes in an 8-hour day, or 50% of a workday. That's the reason why, at the end of a workday, at the end of a work week, at the end of a work month, you feel like you've worked so hard but not accomplished what you intended to accomplish. It's a very frustrating feeling, and it doesn't have to be that way. Again, there's an excellent system in the Touchstone application that you can download for free. The system gives you an effective way to plan your day and minimize interruptions, and the result is a more efficient workday, work week, and a greater feeling of satisfaction. There are some consultants, such as Michael Gerber, Tony Robbins, Chet Holmes, who claim that 96% of businesses fail in their first 10 years. Michael Gerber writes that 80% of businesses fail in their first 5 years, and of the 20% that make it through the first 5 years, fully 80% of them will fail in the next 5 years. As I mentioned in one of my earlier slides, I don't like to use extreme and sometimes unbelievable facts to shock business owners. So we found a study by Wells Fargo Bank that reported that 64% of all new businesses fail in the first 10 years. And of the roughly 36% of businesses that did in fact keep their doors open after 10 years, only 39% of them, a little over a third, were actually profitable. The rest were at break even or were losing money. That's pitiful. This study by Wells Fargo Bank, an institution that is lending money to these small businesses, is claiming that only 14% of all new startups will actually be profitable after 10 years. 10 years is a huge investment to put into an opportunity that's never going to be profitable, an opportunity that, in fact, is never going to serve you. What we say is that it is simply not an option to not have documented operating procedures in your business. It is simply the only way that you'll be able to replicate what you and your key people do. It is the only way that you can create a consistent and a reliable set of business activities within your business. So the question then is not whether or not you need systems. The question is, how do you systemize your business? Most business owners fail to systemize their business because of two key reasons. They lack a systems development plan, and they lack a systems development tool.